Hi, my name's Stephen Sonsino, and I want to share with you my thoughts on how to write and publish your book in 12 weeks. And the first thing you're probably asking is, can it be done? Can you actually write and publish a book in 12 weeks? Actually, I have to tell you that not all of the books that my wife Jackie and I have written have been published in 12 weeks. We published our first leadership book. It wasn't our first book, but it was our first leadership book in 2003, Leadership Unplugged. And that certainly took about a year off and on to write and get published. We were going through Palgrave Macmillan, so it also took a bit longer because the professional publishing process takes longer as well. We wrote our second leadership book, The 7 Failings of Really Useless Leaders, with Cambridge University Press, and we'd taken a great deal more control over that, but it still took between 6 and 9 months to write and get published. Recently, we wrote and published The CEO's Journey. It's a biography, actually, about the life and leadership of the late Rami Makhzoomi. Now, that took a year to research and probably 6 to 8 weeks finally to get printed and published. So none of these took 12 weeks to publish, but I want to tell you the story of Leadership FM. Leadership FM is a book I wrote. I'd been invited to be a keynote speaker at World Workplace, which is the annual amazing conference and exhibition. This year it was running in Los Angeles for the International Facilities Management Association, or IFMA. And I was looking at all the leadership books and the management books I'd written, and I realized that I didn't actually have one specifically about FM. So I thought to myself, well, why not write a book on leadership and facilities management, hence the title, Leadership FM. Not only that, but I was able to get the domain leadership.fm, which was just perfect for me. I loved that idea of being able to call my book and have my website the same name. Now, unfortunately, that idea came to me pretty late in the day. It was about 4 to 5 months before the show. But nevertheless, because I'd written so many books by that stage, about 7, I think it was, I realized that I knew exactly what to do, and I just streamlined the process and just raced through every step of it. And I was able to get Leadership FM, the Think Bigger Manifesto, out and published in 12 weeks dead. From nothing to a final printed book in my hand, it took 12 weeks. And I realized that this was an amazing system that I'd kind of built, if you like, or streamlined into this package. But I didn't really think much of it. Interestingly, I was able to not only get the book out in 12 weeks, I was also able to get a DVD out of some video training, did an audio book and an ebook all in that time as well, because when you send your book off to be printed, there are a couple of weeks or 10 days or so before you get it back, if you talk to the right printer, when you actually have a little bit less to do. So I was planning the event, planning the launch, but also I was able to record the audiobook and some videos as well. So in 12 weeks, you can accomplish an enormous amount if you put your mind to it, if you follow the right kind of system. Now, since then, we're currently working on this book called What's Your Leadership Legacy, and that will be finished shortly. I have assured Jackie that it will be finished within the 12 weeks. We're on target to do that in just a few weeks' time. I'm working on a secret project that I can't tell you about. It's taken us six weeks so far to write. This is for a client, and it's going to be launched in 3 weeks' time. I have a drop-dead date of the 1st of October when that book has to be in the hands of the author, because it's being presented by a minister at an amazing open conference in London. So we will have finished that in 9 weeks dead. And most recently, interestingly, this is a book I helped publish for my brother Simon on art. It's an art book, and we actually did that from start to finish in 6 weeks dead. We managed to get it written. He got all the artwork together, and we published it in 6 weeks dead. And this week, just this last week gone, he hit the top 10 of Amazon in the art category for lettering and calligraphy, actually. He got to number 6. You can see here in the book's art, architecture and photography, lettering and calligraphy category. And overall, actually, across the whole of Amazon, he reached 13,000 overall in terms of bestsellers. So much so that we actually blew Amazon's complete stock of the book, and they have to keep ordering a few extra every day. So it is possible. It is possible to get your book out in 12 weeks. So let me share with you the template, the bestseller blueprint, if you like. No one can guarantee that you'll get a bestseller, but this is our best shot at doing getting your book out there in 12 weeks. We'll talk about creating bestsellers in another video, but the first thing you do in week 0, actually on day 1, when you start thinking about this, your title is really important. You've got to have a killer title. Your table of contents and your blurb, the stuff that you put on the cover, on the back particularly, they're also very, very significant. I put title in red because of those 3 things. It's the title that's the single most important thing that you can write. In the first week, you list your assets, what you've already got. Have you got any material that you can include in the book? You also will list 20 interviews. You can write a book a number of different ways, but the fastest way we've come across it is identify 20 people that you want to interview and then set out to interview them. You'd also in week 1 try and buy the ISBNs or register the ISBNs at the national agency in the country where you're based. In week 2, you'd set out to do those interviews, 3 or 4 each week. You don't have to kill yourself. You may have a day job. You might be doing this in lunch hours or after hours. You start some research. You need to do 3 or 4, get 3 or 4 case studies or extra pieces of research. So from Google, from your local library, online, wherever it might be, you need to do some research. And in week 2 as well, you need to begin to identify printers, either printers that are local to you that you know of, or identify some great books that you like, some great publishers, and call them up inside on the front page, inside front cover. It tells you exactly who's printed books. Find a book you really like and call them up and ask them to quote for you. In the third week, you'll be doing more interviews and more research. You should also think about getting the interviews that you've done transcribed. Now, I can tell you exactly where to get your interviews transcribed very cheaply, very cost effectively, and it happens or can happen within 24 hours. We did a book recently where we had something like 80 interviews. It took 2 years to write, so we didn't want to be doing transcriptions as well, and we were able to get our transcriptions done within 24 hours. Not all in one go. Obviously, we fed those through to the transcriptionists over a few days. In the fourth week, you'll continue with your interviews. You will start writing. You'll have enough material now to start writing, to write your preface in chapters 1 and 2, and you'll also begin to plan your design. In week 5, a bit more interviews, a bit more writing, and you'll also plan your launch. Don't forget, we're doing this really fast, so you need to be planning this a couple of months out. So week 5, you've got about 7-8 weeks left before you actually launch your book. In the 6th week, a bit more writing. You'll actually begin editing as well. You need to kind of go back over some of the early chapters that you've written and maybe generally tidy them up a little bit. But don't forget, you are doing this editing. Now, at some point, you're going to have to hand it over to somebody else. You cannot take this through on your own. You're going to need to get somebody else to look at this. And by the way, just look back up there at transcribing. I put a little asterisk on there. I've put some asterisks on this list, the things that you need to do, you need to be involved with, and the things that you can commission, that you can ask other people to do. Of course, these are going to add a little bit to your costs, but we'll help you keep those down as much as we can. Now, in this first 6 weeks, in the first half of the book, where you're creating the book, you're driving the process, it's you interviewing, it's you defining who you want to talk to. So there is a lot of work for you up front. But as we get into the second half, you'll see that more and more you can commission outside to other people. Now, you might want to do it all yourself. You might be able to do it yourself. You might not be able to afford to get anybody else to do, but I will share with you, my wife Jackie will share with you exactly how we do all of our books ourselves. So although there are 2 of us, we each can do each other's job, so with 1 or 2 exceptions. So I'll share that with you as well when we get to it. Now, in week 7, you need to get your book listed on Amazon. You may have done that already. You need to get yourself a website up or ready so that you can launch the book and you can commission that to somebody else as well. And this is when you really need to find somebody who's going to edit the book for you to really have a completely fresh pair of eyes, a fresh look at the book. Not just finding spelling mistakes, but maybe trying to identify, have you really served your readers with the chapters that you've written so far? In week 8, you'll finish the writing and finish your basic editing. And maybe, if you're lucky, if you finished all the writing for definite now, 8 weeks in, 2 months in, then you can get it all edited. And you should start getting it typeset. What do I mean by that? You need to have it prepared in a program called Adobe InDesign, or maybe you've heard of QuarkXPress. Maybe you've got your own preference when it comes to typesetting, but it needs to be a professional, high-quality setting piece of software. You can do this in Word, and some books on Kindle are just submitted with Word, but you don't have the level of control over the letters and how it looks. If you want to do this really professionally, you'll do this in InDesign or QuarkXPress or something like that. And you need to start that process in week 8. In week 9, you need to finish your editing. You need to finish the setting. This is quite heavyweight work at this stage, but again, you'll see the asterisks here. You don't have to do it all. And you need to proofread those typeset pages in case any extra problems have crept in. You also need, as part of the proofreading process, to make sure that you haven't libeled anybody, so that there are legal issues associated with creating a book. So you need to make sure that you've addressed all of those, that you haven't let any mistakes slip through. I used to teach journalism. My wife Jackie was on the Financial Times for 18 years as a columnist and senior editor, so we can teach you everything you need to know about the legalities of publishing. Or if you've got a professional proofreader, a professional editor, then they should be able to cover that off for you. That's really important. So in week 10 now, you have actually by this stage passed it over probably to the printer for printing. If you want a hardback book, it's going to take in the region of 2 to 3 weeks to get that printed physically and in your hand. So by this stage, the book, if you're printing a hardback, is out of your hands, and you've got 2 to 3 weeks to finish your launch plan and start to collect what I call bonuses. So you need to kind of identify people who can help you, who can partner with you to provide incentives. You want someone to buy your book and get some additional materials so that they buy in the same week. The idea is we can actually create a bit of an interest in your book, and if you've got some additional bonuses that when they buy your book they get these bonuses, then that's an added incentive. So in week 10 you'll start to collect these bonuses. Week 11, you really need to think now. It's just a couple of weeks away from your official launch day when your book will go live on Amazon or wherever you choose to publish. You can just distribute them via bookstores, though that's a bit more complicated. You need to spend time anyway designing how is that day going to look. And also, you might remember in the Leadership FM run-up to Publishing Leadership FM, we'd created an audiobook. So maybe that's something you'd want to do. You can commission it to somebody else to read if you want, but I think it's cool to read it yourself. You don't have to do that. It's just something that's neat or cool to do if you've got the time. In the final of week 12, before you get the books in your hand, then you need to really follow your launch plan. At the end of week 12, you'll be launching your book, and there's a lot of stuff going on. So not only launching it on Amazon, but tracking it, tracking the sales, seeing how far it goes up the bestseller lists, and maybe beginning to fulfill some of those sales and fulfill some of the sales of other products that you might be selling simultaneously with the book. Now, I said this was a 12-week template, but, it goes on. It doesn't end at 12 weeks. You need to follow up on your book sales and the sales of other things that you might be creating. It doesn't end there. Now, I say quite often and in a number of places that a book is not a business, but the book can be a great platform, a great launch vehicle for a great deal of income, providing training or coaching if you're into nonfiction on the business side. My brother Simon is an artist, so he's been selling workshops and other paintings as a result of the visibility that his book has brought him. So after 12 or 13 weeks, you will have a book in your hand. It will be selling. You will be selling other services and products as well, and you'll get the benefits of that. You will reap the rewards of all this hard work over the past 12 weeks. You'll have the book in your hand to share with people that matter to you, with your customers, clients, family, and friends. It's an amazing feeling to have your own book in your hand, but also it gives you a tremendous amount of credibility if you are trying to sell other services, other products as well.